Hi, I'd like to share a portion of my testimony that comes from my book, Memoirs of a Nobody, and it's going to be in the form of what Google calls an epic poem or a verse novel. She was often alone, marched to the beat of her own drum, the weird one, often rejected and told she thought too much of herself because of her appearance. Joke's on them, because she never thought too much of herself or even at all. Instead, she questioned God as to why she existed. She didn't fit anywhere. She never wanted the attention or to be part of the in crowd, just an introvert tired of being picked out. So instead of the lesson her parents told her to get, she would learn to master shrinking herself until the coordinates of her existence was only detected by users, abusers, bullies, and fellow misfits. Daddy told her, "Everybody that grins in your face ain't your friend." She wasn't absent of common sense, so surely that sunk in. Ha! It would take 50 plus 1 years to get that lesson down pat, because he never warned her that snakes, witches, and warlocks go to church and hold positions. That one she's still figuring out. Ouch. So late one adolescent night, the devil convinced her to go into the kitchen cabinet because the pain of parental rejection and the bullies at school were just too much for her to fight. She scoured the area for an orange bottle of May Cause Drowsy and poured a handful to remove herself from sight. Though careful enough to leave some behind in the event she failed at this like she did in school. She called her toxic and forbidden love to say her only goodbye. Till this day, she hates that word more than life. Because the one person she needed to hear say it couldn't or give an explanation as to why. Instead, God would introduce her to a new gift and show her grandma's passing in a dream before her earthly departure. She prayed, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to sweet." Lying in that twin bed, lights out, eyes wide shut, but somehow the room grew darker and her small frame felt heavier than ever. A voice broke through the deafening silence. "Get up," he said, the second and third time even louder. She wheeled her sealed eyes open and tried with all her might to make her near-paralyzed body obedient to the voice trying to save her life. With groggy and heavy footsteps, eyes barely open, she made her way to the bathroom to rid herself of the substance. To her surprise, there was a pink bucket kept for mopping, usually tucked in the garage. It was left waiting for her, as if her last-minute decision didn't catch God off guard. That night was lonely and rough, as she sat on that porcelain chair, face planted, while holding the bucket that just 15 years earlier held her diapers that she used to wear and wasn't supposed to be there. With stomach muscles clenched tight, her esophagus and rear end were not prepared for that long fight. And in the months that followed, her ultimate survival that would change her life. Back in school, desperate for connection, egged on by toxic love, fueled by classmates in Mr. Watt's music class, they convinced her to be the butt of the joke they wanted to play on Pat. "All you have to do is pretend to be pregnant, so we can see if she's the messy one between us." And because life and death lies in the power of the tongue, and heaven needed her consent, she thought it was stupid. She said the words, and to her surprise, God was listening. He gave her a daughter and a dream of a microchip, as if to announce she'd be smarter. Surely his plan must have been for her to have someone in the physical world that she loved enough to stay here for, because life got harder as a teen mom when she had to fight him and what the doctors called the blues of postpartum. His obsession with her oppression ran deeper than the depression put on her at her mama's house. The toxic lover that chased her since the 4th grade that Daddy made her marry would use the very gift that God gave her as a pawn in a game of punishment for choosing peace over abuse. So of course he would hijack her story and make it their daughter's. Before her independence, she lived life like a nomad, with everything she owned in black hefty trash bags. She roamed from pillow to post, and whenever they made her feel unloved or unwanted, She'd just pick them up and go. Through her journey, she learned to read rooms, discern spirits, and that actions speak louder than words, until one day she thought surely she'd found a family that would treat her like one of their own, only to find out the dad had indiscretions, and though she wasn't around, her predicament fit the description of a homewrecker, so off she went to another town. Absent of clean hands, though never that dirty, she went on to wreck a few homes, just not that one. She wanted and needed the love of a father from one of her last names. The love of the first wasn't realized until 18 years after God called him home while on the phone in the parking lot of that Costco with the son she bore from a stranger she told no. Unwanted encounters should never be had, but this was one of the moments that made her glad that she never once thought to throw him away. And now there are 3 more reasons. His wife made her a Mimi of 2 little humans they call Caden and Ray. Once again, she'd tell you her hands aren't clean because all 3 of the children she would have had 4 years difference all in between. Because children are her favorite humans, she grieved the decision to terminate, but couldn't bear the thought of yet another abuser using yet another child to abuse her. Sure, she should have chosen abstinence or celibacy, but she had been touched as a child, and those events made her crave images that no child or adult should see. So she developed a private addiction, wrestled with who she was spiritually and sexually, because when one doesn't know their identity is in Christ, and the people they love most play mental games, the enemy will use it like ammo, and that's the real reason we don't talk about Bruno. So before you cast stones or attempt to discredit, be sure to know we all have a heavenly value, and if you listen with your whole heart to a person's story, you may just find yourself or your legacy in it. You are anointed to reach the people in your struggle tribe, and she is anointed to reach hers. No competition needed. There's plenty of struggles to go around. God just wants us to love each other enough to tell our stories and be vulnerable to show our scars. In closing, be quick to listen and slow to judge, so we can all break free of the invisible masks of fakeness that keep us in bondage. Because like code switching, that gets exhausting. So don't pretend to be more or less than you truly are. Just keep your little red wagon in the road. Keep God first, and I promise you'll go far. But before I go, I'll leave you with this disclaimer. Jesus walked everywhere, so be prepared to take the scenic route and a little slower. So, I hope and pray that you could hear my story and maybe draw some parallels to your story or to someone that you love. Yeah, stay salty and lit.